Right, more news is coming out of Number 10 and Downing Street in terms of breaking up a civil service and the establishment. We've heard recently how Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson have been working on reforming certain government departments. Now the news is coming out that they are going to move certain bureaucrats and civil servants out of London to places like York and other places. Let's listen to Michael Gove and see what he had to say first.
Well, York is not the only place where we can redeploy some of the essential decision makers who form part of our brilliant civil service. We're looking at different locations across the United Kingdom. It's already the case that there are civil servants, for example, in the Department for International Development in Scotland, and of course a significant number of civil servants from the Department for Transport in Wales. But we wanted to make sure that across our whole United Kingdom, the power of the UK government, its capacity to make a difference for the better, is felt by everyone. So we'll be saying more in coming months about how we can ensure that jobs and investment and opportunity are spread more equally across the whole UK.
Well, this is certainly good news, and we're going to discuss this with our Sunday contributor, Talk Radio's Andre Walker. Hello, Andre, how are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
Yeah, no, but thanks. So obviously you and I are kind of libertarian-leaning conservatives. At the same time, we have criticised the government every now and then when they do stupid things. But you can't deny that the two areas that they've been very good at is, one, dealing with Brexit, and two, the way they're dealing with the establishment, the civil service. What's your view on this latest news?
Well, it's long overdue. I mean, look, I genuinely support what Michael Gove has said, but it's so annoying that it's taken so long. If you think about it, the success of the DVLA in Swansea, which I think must have moved in the 1970s or the 1980s, I mean, that's been successful for a long period of time. Part of the problem is we're spending all of this money in terms of offices and in terms of London waiting, keeping everybody in Whitehall, when they could be so much easier spread across the country. And look, I've not got a great deal of time for Andy Burnham, but when he was Secretary of State, he forced the BBC to move to Media City in Salford. And that's been a huge success. It's been brilliant for regeneration. And so you've got all of these sort of depressed towns in northern England, desperate for jobs, and then people crammed in, cheek by jowl into London, made worse because government departments are there.
Yeah, and I think one reason is a lot of people, the liberal left, the out-of-touch metropolitans, people like Alistair Campbell, that lot, every time they want to show that they care about ordinary Brits across the country, and especially in the north, the working classes, they say, well, what we could do is move like the House of Parliament up there. But these are sort of actual gimmicks. The real reforms that we could do, as you said, is move certain departments and government agencies, bureaucrats, because these are expensive if they work and live in London. I mean, do you think that there's going to be a backlash when it comes to the establishment against Michael Gove and Boris Johnson?
Well, actually, that's exactly what you want. You want certain people to refuse to move from London because those are the London-centric, metropolitan, elite type people. What you've seen in Media City, and I don't mean to go on too much about it, but if you look at the University of Salford Media Department, that has now been co-located with the BBC. So it means that people that were going to go to university in Northern England anyway now have an opportunity at the BBC. Now, when they made that move, there were plenty of millionaire TV and radio producers who decided that they didn't want to go with the BBC. I think that's good because you fundamentally get rid of them. So I think that overall, the backlash is something that you would seek to encourage, really, because it's not just about moving people. It's about getting a new breed of people. Similarly, if you look at now how the Conservatives have done, whether that be the Conservative Party or whether it be the wider Conservative movement, including the Brexit Party and UKIP, they've done incredibly well by bringing together people in the south of England who are Conservative, but also northern working class people. And we want to give them an opportunity to benefit from both Brexit and the Conservative government.
Yeah, I mean, this is a mandate that people gave Boris Johnson, especially in the north, northeast, in the Midlands. And speaking of Brexit and people kicking off, it's not just about the civil service being, having this shake-up. The latest news we have is that, according to ITV News, government has now announced that £700 million will be spent to strengthen the UK borders. And the European Union were quite optimistic and thinking, we are leaving, but in the name of trade and frictionless trade, we're going to get the UK to have a soft border with us. They're talking about how more than £700 million will be spent on building the new infrastructure, hiring staff, and developing technology to ensure Britain's border systems are fully operational. And I mean, this includes like over £200 million for staffing, IT systems. I mean, on the one hand, this is good news, right? In general, but I'm kind of concerned about the spending because this is your typical politicians and governments just signing random contracts with IT systems and everything without checking how much money they could actually save, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Although it did always make me laugh that when there was a problem at the French border, because obviously, as you know, the UK border is actually in Calais. What happened was they built a wall and made the UK pay, which I think proves that potentially our friends from over the pond had a reasonable point about making Mexico pay for a wall. Look, in truth, because Britain wasn't a part of Schengen, we probably could have strengthened our borders anyway, but there's been no action on it for so many years. Because this is one thing that I think is going to be really important as we move out of the transition phase with the EU. For 40 years, failed British politicians have blamed the EU for everything. Now, look, I voted to leave, but the EU was not the worst pariah in the world. Believe me now, there is nowhere to hide for politicians. And so, in truth, they could have spent this money years ago. They should have spent this money years ago, but their excuse for not doing it has now started to disappear.
I mean, you're right. I mean, this could have been done years ago, and especially after 2016, slowly actually scrutinize the contracts and find the best deals and prepare the border anyway. We were supposed to be leaving anyway. But I think the problem we have is that out there's no proper scrutiny when it comes to governmental stuff from the media, from the other people that we have, because they are more concerned about trivial and gossip politics and all this stuff. Like right now, we just heard that they're going after Rule Britannia, Land of Hope and Glory, when it comes to BBC Prom. For those obviously who don't know, it's BBC Prom. I mean, most of you probably do know. It's very kind of popular, very famous, and every year they have this kind of tradition with the Union flags and singing Rule Britannia. But apparently it's insensitive, so we have to abolish it. Should we?
Well, look, the existence of the Western world is insensitive to certain people, and those are the people, and I've said this plenty of times, who lamented the fall of the Soviet Union, who wished Britain and America and the Western Alliance to be defeated. The sort of people who now, and we saw with Google, the sort of people who believe that that certain leaders from the 1940s should be removed, like Winston Churchill, but others are deemed entirely appropriate, even though they're dreadful themselves. Look, you know, the Western Alliance needs to prosper. The Western Alliance needs to do well, and certain people hate that and object to it. And I've always thought that the European Union was part of the process of trying to destroy the West. I mean, I believe in many respects, the European Union is about Europe self-aborting and giving up and sort of allowing uncontrolled immigration and managing its economic decline. And so, you know, we now need to strike out on our own. And part of that is having the confidence as a nation to tell the people who want to ban Land of Hope and Glory that they're enemies of the state.
Yeah, I know. I think you mentioned the European Union and Brexit. I think this was the beginning in 2016, and then you had the Trump election and everything else. I know it's not good to compare the two, but there were correlations in terms of the anti-establishment movement. I feel like when it comes to what's happening now with the cancel culture, because it's not new. It's been going on slowly for years and decades, but I think it kind of feels to me that because of what happened in 2016 and Brexit and now the Boris Johnson government, Trump and all this stuff that's going on around Europe, I feel like the woke side, or whatever you want to call them, the hard left, this is now them kind of kicking off. It's not a proactive movement, it's actually reactionary to what we did. And this is why they're kind of lashing out. Is it going to get worse, or are they going to just shut up now?
Well, when I worked for Steve Bannon at Breitbart, they were always going on about this culture wars. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. I had no idea what they were talking about. I was a conservative Brexiteer. And then suddenly I've now realised what it's all about. It's all about the fact that, you know, the left know that they cannot beat us at the ballot box. They know their policies are unpopular. They know that the fall of the Soviet Union discredited socialist economics and socialist systems of government. They know that people won't wear the human rights abuses of the political left or the grinding poverty that they push people into it. So they're not trying to beat you at the ballot box. What they're trying to do is browbeat you into silence. And that's what the cancel culture is all about. And that's what we see with all these statues, an attempt to eradicate you, humiliate you, attack you, and force you into not liking what you get, but being forced to accept it.
You're right. When it comes to ballot box, they can't win, but they have infiltrated academia, media, and obviously our establishment. Whitehall civil service is full of them, and this is why I'm kind of concerned about the consequences, because we have to break up the whole system anyway, not just for the sake of saving money and it's more efficient anyway, but actually it's probably time for them to realize that you've been in charge for a long time without anybody saying anything, because no one even noticed that these guys have been infiltrating, like Hydra in Marvel movies. And so I think we have to kind of wait and see how it goes, because I think these people are not going to give up. And they're going to find a new way because before this BLM stuff and everything, they were doing the same thing, but the battleground was called classes, different classes, and we're going to come after you, the working classes. But now they're going after race and gender and everything else. But that reminds me, the comeback kids, the Liberal Democrats are coming. They're having their election, apparently. I keep forgetting that they exist. And the BBC are talking about how, who will be the next Lib Dem leader between the, Palestinian-loving weirdo, Layla Moran, or Ed Davey, who I don't even know what he stands for anymore.
That election is too close to care. Anyway, look, I've got to say one thing, because I've just realised the comment section is going to light up about what I said a little bit earlier about the success of moving the BBC to Salford. Can I just be clear that I do support breaking up the BBC?
Yes. Because
honestly, I know what your viewers are like. They'll absolutely kill me if they believe that I'm in support of something related to the BBC.
Yeah.
But look, the Liberal Democrats are going to make a comeback. And also, the people that supported the Soviet Union are making a comeback in this cancel culture. The baddies have not disappeared. And, Steve Bannon, who I mentioned earlier, always said, did you think they were going to give you your country back without a fight? It's just such an important phrase for us all to remember, that these people ran amok for 45 years. It was a bonanza for them. They made a fortune. They became millionaires. If you look at the way that Gordon Brown destroyed the pension funds, that put all house prices up, and therefore people in the southeast of England made an absolute fortune at the expense of younger people. And so, these people had a bonanza. They made a lot of money. They did incredibly well. They ran all these institutions, and now taking them back is not going to happen without a fight. But that fight is going to be a constant process. What is upsetting, of course, is when the Soviet Union fell, a lot of people thought, well, that was the end of all these coal and all the rest of it. But of course, with the rise of China and with the backlash against Brexit, and of course with what the BBC are doing and the culture wars, we see that unfortunately human life remains a struggle. But a fun one.
I know, right? And then, to clarify, as Andrew said, we are still against the BBC. And that reminds me, this is the last day we have for the promotion that we have. Get your t-shirts. They found the BBC. And cancel your TV license and watch my Tousi instead. The link is in the description. Check it out. Also, if you want to support the channel, become a member. Andre and I are going to go get ready for our second video. And any last few words?
Well, I don't know. You've not sent me the t-shirt yet. That's my problem.
It's coming. It's coming.
Useless.
It's stuck.
Lazy.
Bureaucratic system. It's fine. Andre and I will see you guys in the second video. And thanks again for watching. And I'll see you guys soon.